"You're fired!" The words echoed off the concrete walls of the warehouse, bouncing between steel beams and stacked pallets until every worker on the floor had heard them. Marcus Grayson stood frozen, his time card still clutched in his hand. Around him, forklifts stopped mid-turn. Conversations died. 30 pairs of eyes turned to watch his public execution. But Marcus barely heard the laughter. His eyes were locked on something else entirely, a single line on the shipping manifest sitting on his boss's desk. A shipment that shouldn't exist. A company name he had never seen in 3 years of memorizing every delivery that passed through these doors. In 12 hours, that name would bring down a billion-dollar empire. And Marcus Grayson, a single father who was 5 minutes late for work, would be the one holding the match. But first, he would lose everything. The Everclear Corporation distribution warehouse sat on the industrial edge of the city like a gray metal tomb. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. The air smelled of cardboard and diesel, and the sweat of men who worked too hard for too little. Marcus had clocked in at this warehouse for 3 years. 3 years of inventory counts and loading schedules and memorizing shipment codes until they played in his dreams. He was good at his job. Better than good. He was the best inventory specialist Everclear had ever employed. And now Ronald Lucas, the floor manager, was firing him in front of everyone. Ronald was a sweaty man with a permanent sneer and a Napoleon complex that made him dangerous. He was also the nephew of Daniel Lucas, the CEO of Everclear, a connection he never let anyone forget. He'd had it out for Marcus ever since Marcus corrected him on a shipment error 6 months ago, made him look stupid in front of the dock workers. Ronald never forgot. Ronald never forgave. 5 minutes late, Grayson. Ronald's voice dripped with satisfaction. He ran a hand over his sweaty scalp and smiled, a mean, small smile. "I warned you. 1 more slip and you're done. Those were my exact words, weren't they?" Marcus felt 30 pairs of eyes boring into his back. He could hear Derek, his buddy from the loading dock, shifting uncomfortably somewhere behind him. They'd worked side by side for 2 years, shared lunches, covered each other's shifts. Derek was probably the closest thing Marcus had to a friend in this place. "Mr. Lucas, please. My daughter's babysitter cancelled last minute. I had to drop her at school myself. I called ahead. I left a message with the front desk. Didn't get any message." Ronald shrugged, still smiling. "Rules are rules, Grayson. 5 minutes late is late, and late is fired." Marcus felt desperation claw at his throat. Leah, his 8-year-old daughter. The rent that was due in 6 days. The medication for her asthma that cost more every month. He couldn't lose this job. He couldn't. He tried a different approach. "Mr. Lucas, please. No one knows this warehouse better than me. Ask any worker on this floor. I can tell you from memory that we have 37 shipments scheduled today. Origin points, contents, dock assignments, every single one. Can any other employee do that?" Ronald laughed. "Listen to him. Thinks he's irreplaceable." He looked around at the watching workers, playing to his audience. "Newsflash, Grayson. Everyone is replaceable, especially you." In desperation, Marcus reached for the day's manifest sitting on Ronald's desk. If he could just prove his value, show them how much he knew. His eyes scanned the familiar columns. Origin, contents, dock assignment, weight. He knew every line by heart, had reviewed them last night before bed. And then he froze. 38 shipments. Marcus said, his voice confused. "This can't be right. There were only 37 when I checked last night." His finger traced down to the anomaly. Line 38. Origin, private charter. Contents, industrial equipment. Shipper, Xavier Arms Limited. Who is Xavier Arms? Marcus looked up at Ronald. "I've never seen this company before. Not in 3 years. What are they shipping?" The change in Ronald was instant. The color drained from his sweaty face. Then it flooded back, red, furious. He ripped the manifest from Marcus's hands with enough force to tear the corner. "That's none of your concern!" Ronald's voice cracked, too loud for the question. "You don't work here anymore, remember? Security!" 2 guards appeared from the shadows near the loading dock. Marcus felt hands grip his arms. Hard hands. Professional hands. As they dragged him away, Marcus looked back at the manifest clutched in Ronald's trembling fingers. Xavier Arms. He filed the name away in his memory, the same memory that held 37 shipments in perfect order. Something was very, very wrong here. The security guard escorting Marcus out wasn't one of the rough-handed men who'd grabbed him. This one was different. Emilia Torres had worked security at Everclear for 2 years. She was in her late 20s, professional but kind, one of the few people in this place who treated warehouse workers like human beings instead of machinery. She'd shared coffee with Marcus during night shifts, listened to him talk about Leah, shown him pictures of her rescue dog. Now she was walking him to the exit, and she clearly hated every step of it. "I'm sorry, Marcus." Her voice was barely above a whisper as they walked through the maze of shipping containers. "This is wrong. Everyone knows you're the best worker here. Ronald's had it out for you ever since you made him look bad." "Can I at least get my things from my locker?" Marcus asked. "There's something important in there, something I can't lose." Emilia shook her head, genuine regret in her eyes. "Orders from above. You're to be escorted directly off premises. They'll clear your locker and mail your belongings to you." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. The letter. Stacy's letter. His wife had written it 3 days before she died, penned on a hospital notepad with shaking hands, her last words to him before the cancer took her. Marcus had kept it in his locker so he could read it on hard days, a reminder that she believed in him, even when the world didn't. "Emilia, please." His voice cracked. "There's a letter in there, from my wife. It's the last thing she ever wrote me before she passed. I can't let them throw it away." Emilia's expression softened, but she glanced up at the office windows above. Ronald was watching. She couldn't help. "Not here. Not now." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am." They walked in silence for a moment. Then Marcus spoke again, quieter this time. "Emilia, do you know anything about a company called Xavier Arms? It wasn't on the schedule yesterday, but suddenly it's on today's manifest. When I mentioned it, Ronald looked like he was going to have a heart attack." Emilia's step faltered. Just for a moment. Her eyes darted around the warehouse, checking for listeners. "There are a lot of things they don't want you to notice, Marcus." Her voice was barely audible. "They don't want workers who pay attention. They want people who follow orders and keep their mouths shut." "What does that mean?" She shook her head. She'd already said too much. But as they reached the exit, she pressed something into his hand, a business card with a phone number scrawled on the back in pen. "If you ever need anything." She held his gaze. "And Marcus? Be careful. Forget what you saw today. For Leah's sake." The heavy metal door swung shut behind him. Marcus stood alone in the parking lot, the afternoon sun too bright after the dim warehouse. No job, no letter, no answers, just 2 words echoing in his head. Xavier Arms. Marcus's apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that barely fit a table. But it was clean, and it was theirs. Photos of Stacy lined the walls, her smile frozen in happier times. Leah's drawings were taped to the refrigerator. Stick figures of their family, the 3 of them holding hands under a crayon sun. 3 of them. Stacy was always in Leah's drawings, even now. Marcus picked Leah up from the neighbor who watched her after school. He tried to keep his face neutral, tried to hide the devastation, But Leah had always been perceptive. Too perceptive for an 8-year-old. She'd had to grow up fast after Stacy died. They both had. Back home, Marcus sat her down on the worn couch. The springs creaked beneath them. He tried to find the words. "Baby, Daddy had a hard day at work today." He swallowed. "Actually, Daddy doesn't work there anymore." Leah looked at him with those big brown eyes, Stacy's eyes, and processed the information with the gravity of someone much older. She'd seen her father struggle before, after her mother died, after the medical bills ate through their savings, after they moved from the house with the backyard to this apartment with the water stains on the ceiling. Instead of crying, instead of panicking, Leah did something that broke Marcus's heart. She hugged him. "It's okay, Daddy." Her small arms wrapped around his neck. "We still have each other, right? That's what Mommy always said. As long as we have each other, we can do anything." Marcus broke. He held his daughter and cried. Silent, shaking sobs that he'd been holding back since Ronald had sneered those 2 words at him. His 8-year-old was comforting him. The role reversal was devastating, but Leah just held on tighter. That night, after Leah had fallen asleep, Marcus sat at the kitchen table and stared at bills. Rent due in 6 days, $1,400. Leah's asthma medication, $180. Electricity, water, food. His savings would cover 1 month, maybe 2 if he stretched. He needed a new job immediately, but his mind kept returning to the warehouse. Xavier Arms. Ronald's panicked face, Emilia's warning. "Be careful, for Leah's sake." And then he remembered. The letter. Stacy's letter was still in his locker. Locker 247. The last words she ever wrote to him. The paper she'd held with trembling hands 3 days before the end. They would clear his locker overnight. Company policy. By morning, everything would be thrown into a box and shipped to him. If he was lucky. If he wasn't, it would all go in the dumpster. He couldn't let that letter disappear. Not that letter. Marcus looked at the clock. 9:47 p.m. The night shift started at 10. Skeleton crew. Just a handful of workers and minimal security. He thought about the gap in the fence near the loading dock, the blind spot the workers used for smoke breaks. Security knew about it but looked the other way. No cameras, no eyes. A plan began to form. Get in through the blind spot, get to the locker room, grab the letter, get out. 15 minutes, in and out. He stood up, went to his closet, found an old Everclear uniform from before he'd lost weight last year. Baggy now, but it would do. Found a worn baseball cap, pulled it low. He looked at Leah's door. She was asleep. The neighbor, Mrs. Chen, could look in on her. He'd done this before for late-night emergencies. He made the call, told Mrs. Chen he had to run an urgent errand. She agreed without question. Bless her. Before he left, Marcus stopped by Leah's room, watched her sleep for a moment, her small chest rising and falling in the glow of her nightlight. "I'll be back soon, baby," he whispered. "Daddy just has to get something important." He slipped out into the night. The Everclear warehouse looked different at night. During the day, it was a grey metal box full of noise and motion. Now, under the cold stars, it looked like something else entirely. A tomb, a fortress, a place where things were hidden. Marcus's heart pounded as he approached the perimeter fence. He'd never done anything like this before. In the Navy, he'd been trained for infiltration. 6 years as a logistics specialist with a classified clearance, working alongside SEALs and special operations units. He knew how to move quietly, how to read a space, how to see what others missed. But that was a lifetime ago. Before Stacy. Before Leah. Before he'd traded his uniform for a warehouse jumpsuit and tried to be a normal man with a normal life. Old skills don't die, though. They just sleep. He found the gap in the fence exactly where he remembered it. Squeezed through, wincing as the chain link scraped his arm. A thin line of blood welled up. He ignored it. Inside the loading dock area, he stuck to the shadows. A few night shift workers were unloading a truck on the far side of the warehouse, their voices distant echoes. They didn't notice him. They weren't looking. He slipped through a side door into the main warehouse. The scale of it at night was eerie. Endless rows of shipping containers and pallets, lit only by the amber glow of emergency lights. His footsteps echoed too loud on the concrete. He made his way toward the employee area. Locker room just past the break room. He knew this place blindfolded. A close call. A security guard rounded a corner ahead. Marcus ducked behind a pallet, pressing himself against the cold metal, holding his breath. The guard passed, flashlight beam sweeping the floor. Gone. Marcus moved on. He reached the locker room. Found his locker, number 247. It was still closed. They hadn't cleared it yet. His combination still worked. The door swung open with a soft click. There it was. The letter. Folded carefully, tucked behind his spare work shirt exactly where he'd left it. He picked it up, felt the familiar weight of it, the soft creases in the paper. He unfolded it gently. Just to see her handwriting, just to feel close to her again. My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm probably not there anymore. But I need you to know that loving you was the greatest adventure of my life. Take care of our girl. She's stronger than you know, and so are you. Marcus's eyes burned. He blinked hard, refocusing. This wasn't the time. He folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket, close to his heart where it belonged. This was the last gift she gave him. Her final words. Whatever happened next, he had this back. Time to go. He closed the locker and turned toward the exit. And then he heard voices, coming from the warehouse floor, familiar voices. One of them belonged to Ronald Lucas. Every instinct told Marcus to leave. He had what he came for. The letter was in his pocket. The door was 50 feet away. But something about Ronald's voice made him pause. It was too urgent, too afraid. Against every shred of better judgment, Marcus moved toward the sound. He stayed low, using the pallets as cover. Old training kicking in. Read the space. Find the vantage point. He found a spot behind a stack of crates and peered through a gap. Ronald was there, pacing, sweating even more than usual. He wasn't alone. 2 men stood with him, hard-looking men in dark clothing, the kind of men who didn't work in warehouses, the kind of men who made problems disappear. They were standing near a shipping container that had been set apart from the others. It bore a label Marcus hadn't seen before, Xavier Arms Limited. I'm telling you, he saw the manifest. Ronald's voice was a panicked whine. He noticed the 38th shipment. That moron actually pays attention, unlike the rest of these idiots. One of the men responded calmly, his voice cold and flat. Does he know what's in it? No, he just saw the name, Xavier Arms. He has no idea what we're actually shipping. The second man crossed his arms. Then why are we worried about a fired warehouse worker? Because my uncle doesn't like loose ends. Ronald wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. He wants this shipment gone tonight. Off the books. After what happened with that nosy worker, we can't take any risks. This shipment could destroy the company if anyone found out. Marcus's blood ran cold. His uncle, Ronald's uncle, was Daniel Lucas, the CEO of Everclear Corporation. A billionaire, one of the most powerful men in the city. This wasn't just Ronald's operation. This went all the way to the top. The 2 men moved to the shipping container. One of them produced a pry bar and worked it under the lid of a wooden crate inside. Marcus watched, barely breathing, as the lid came free. Inside, packed in foam padding, gleaming under the dim emergency lights, were rows of assault rifles. AK-47s. Military grade. untraceable. Marcus's mind raced. Everclear Corporation wasn't just a logistics company. They were smuggling weapons, illegal arms, the kind of cargo that got people killed, both the ones who bought them and the ones who got in the way. This wasn't about a petty boss firing him over 5 minutes. This was federal crime. This was the kind of thing people disappeared over. He needed to leave. Now, he needed to call someone. The police, the FBI, anyone. He started to back away. Slowly, carefully. "Marcus?" He froze. Derek. His friend Derek was standing 3 feet away, eyes wide, mouth open. "What are you doing here, man?" Derek whispered urgently. "I'm just getting something from my locker." Marcus's heart was hammering. "Please, Derek, don't turn me in." Derek hesitated. His eyes darted toward the men by the container, then back to Marcus. 2 years they'd worked together. Shared lunches, covered shifts. "Go," Derek said finally, nodding toward the exit. "Hurry, I didn't see anything." Relief flooded through Marcus. He moved for the door. He was almost there when the lights clicked on. Blinding. Harsh. The full warehouse flooded with light. Ronald's voice echoed across the floor. "There he is." The 2 hard-faced men were moving toward him now. Fast. Marcus ran. He didn't look back. He could hear footsteps behind him, gaining. He was almost to the side door when a hand clamped down on his shoulder, spinning him around. And there, standing behind him, was Derek. His friend Derek, with a walkie-talkie in his hand. Ronald's voice crackled through the speaker. "Good work, Derek. The bonus will be in your next check." Marcus stared at the man he'd thought was his friend. Derek couldn't meet his eyes. "I'm sorry, man." Derek's voice was barely a whisper. "I've got a family too." Something hard connected with the back of Marcus's skull. The world went black. Marcus woke up with the worst headache of his life. His wrists were bound behind him, zip ties cutting into his skin. His chair was bolted to the floor. The room around him was all wrong for a warehouse. Polished floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive art on the walls. He was in an office. The nicest office he had ever seen. A man stood at the window, his back to Marcus, looking out at the city lights below. When the man turned, Marcus saw the family resemblance immediately. The same bald head as Ronald, the same small eyes. But where Ronald was pudgy and loud, this man was thin and elegant. Where Ronald sweated and sneered, this man radiated cold control. Daniel Lucas, CEO of Everclear Corporation, billionaire, one of the most powerful men in the city, the devil in a $3,000 suit. "Ah, Mr. Grayson." Daniel's voice was soft, almost pleasant, like a professor greeting a student. "You're awake. Good. I was beginning to worry my associates had been too enthusiastic." He walked slowly toward Marcus, each step deliberate, precise. "Do you know who I am?" Marcus nodded, his throat dry. "Daniel Lucas, Ronald's uncle, CEO." "Good. Then you understand the position you're in." Daniel perched on the edge of his mahogany desk, looking down at Marcus like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. "You trespassed on my property. You witnessed something you shouldn't have. And now—" He spread his hands apologetically. "Now we have a problem." "I didn't mean to see anything." Marcus's voice cracked. "I just came back for a letter. Something personal. I was going to leave." "I believe you." Daniel nodded sympathetically. "Truly I do. You seem like a simple man with simple motivations. Family, sentimentality. These are understandable things." His tone shifted slightly, a razor wrapped in silk. "But understanding doesn't solve my problem, does it? You saw the merchandise. You know what we're shipping. and I can't have that information walking out of this building. Marcus thought of Leah, 8 years old, waiting for him at home, trusting him to come back. I won't tell anyone. The words came out desperate. I swear, I just want to go home to my daughter. Daniel's expression flickered at the mention of a daughter. He reached for a folder on his desk, opened it, showed Marcus a photograph. It was Leah, getting off the school bus, laughing at something. The photo had been taken that morning. Leah Grace Grayson. Daniel read from the file. Age 8, 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary. Mild asthma. Favorite color is purple. He closed the folder. I know everything about you, Mr. Grayson. I know about your wife's death. I know about your financial struggles. And I know that little girl is the only thing in this world you care about. Marcus lunged forward in his chair, but the zip ties held. Rage flooded through him, hot and blinding. If you touch her... Daniel held up a hand. Please. I'm not a monster. I have no desire to hurt a child. He smiled that cold, patient smile. But I need insurance. I need to know you'll keep your mouth shut. He leaned in close enough that Marcus could smell his cologne. Expensive, subtle. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out of here tonight. You're going to go home to your daughter, and you're going to forget everything you saw. Everclear Corporation will not exist in your memory. If anyone asks, you were fired for being late. That's the entire story. And if I don't? Daniel stood, walked back to the window, looked out at the city he owned. Then I will visit Leah. His voice was calm, conversational. And I will explain to her very gently that her father made some very poor choices. He glanced back. Children are resilient, Mr. Grayson. She'll recover eventually. Orphans often do. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. This man was talking about killing him, talking about leaving Leah alone in the world, and he was doing it in the same tone someone might use to discuss the weather. But even as fear clawed at his throat, Marcus's eyes were moving. Old training. Assess the room. Find the weakness. He noticed the security camera in the corner, red light blinking, recording. And he noticed something else. The camera was pointed directly at Daniel's desk. Daniel had just admitted to arms smuggling. On camera, in his own office. Marcus filed that information away. And then he saw something else. On Daniel's desk, half hidden under the folder with Leah's photo. A familiar piece of paper. The manifest. Today's manifest. Xavier Arms Limited, printed clearly on line 38. Proof. Daniel nodded to his guards. Remove the restraints. Mr. Grayson is leaving. As the guard cut the zip ties, Marcus made his move. He lurched forward like he was losing his balance. A stumble, a man dizzy from the blow to his head. His hand swept across the desk in the fall. In one smooth motion, trained by years of military drills, he grabbed the manifest and crumpled it into his pocket. The guard shoved him back. Daniel didn't notice. The paper was hidden. Daniel waved dismissively. Get him out of here. He was already turning back to his window. And Mr. Grayson? Marcus looked back. Give Leah my regards. Marcus was dragged out, thrown into an alley behind the building. He hit the wet pavement hard, tasting blood and garbage. He lay there for a moment, rain beginning to fall, body aching, head bleeding. But in his pocket, crumpled and damp, was the proof he needed. And in his other pocket, close to his heart, was Stacy's letter. He had a decision to make. Marcus drove through the night, rain streaking the windshield. His hands shook on the steering wheel. Blood still trickled from the cut on his head. He'd gone home first, changed out of his torn clothes, woken Mrs. Chen and thanked her. And then he'd done the hardest thing of all. He'd woken Leah. She was in the back seat now, wrapped in a blanket, drifting in and out of sleep. She'd asked questions. Why are we leaving, Daddy? Where are we going? But she'd trusted him enough to come when he said it was important. She trusted him. That trust was the most precious thing Marcus had ever held. He couldn't let Daniel Lucas take it from her. An hour outside the city, the roads grew dark and narrow. Trees pressed in on both sides, no streetlights, no signs of life. And then, just visible through the rain, a cabin. Motion sensor lights clicked on as Marcus pulled up the gravel drive. Leroy Grayson was already waiting on the porch. Marcus's uncle was 62 years old and built like a man half that age. 20 years in the Navy SEALs had left him with hard eyes, steady hands, and a property fortified with enough security measures to make a paranoid survivalist jealous. He and Marcus had served together briefly, back when Marcus was young and idealistic, and thought he could make a difference. Leroy had trained him, taught him to see what others missed, to move when others froze. He was the one person in the world Marcus trusted absolutely. Marcus carried the sleeping Leah inside, laid her on the couch in front of a fire Leroy had already built. She stirred but didn't wake. The two men stepped outside to talk. Marcus told him everything: the firing, Xavier Arms, the weapons, Daniel Lucas, the threat to Leah. Leroy listened without expression. When Marcus was done, he nodded slowly. So what's your play? Marcus reached into his pocket, took out the manifest. I have proof, shipment records, enough to get them investigated. He paused. But I can't go to the police. Daniel has connections everywhere. And I can't go to the press. If he finds out before they publish, he'll come for Leah. Leroy studied the manifest, ran his calloused fingers over the paper. Then you need to buy time. Make him think he won. Then hit him when he's not expecting it. Marcus nodded. The shape of a plan was forming. A desperate plan. A dangerous plan. But it might just work. Morning light filtered through Leroy's cabin windows. Leah woke up confused, scared, until she saw her father sitting at the kitchen table. She ran to him, hugged him tight. Daddy, what's happening? You're scaring me. Marcus held her. He didn't know how to explain. How do you tell an 8-year-old that bad men want to hurt you because Daddy saw something he shouldn't have? He knelt down to her level, looked into her eyes, Stacy's eyes. Leah, I need you to be brave for me, okay? Like Mommy always said you could be. I have to go take care of something, but Uncle Leroy is going to look after you, and I promise I'm going to come back for you. Her eyes filled with tears. Why can't I come with you? Because I need to know you're safe, and you're safe here with Uncle Leroy. He glanced at the old SEAL, who nodded. He's the toughest person I know. Marcus walked towards the door. Leah ran after him, grabbing his hand. Daddy, wait! He turned. She was looking up at him with those big brown eyes. He thought of Stacy, of her last words, scrawled on hospital paper with a shaking hand. Take care of our girl. She's stronger than you know. Marcus reached into his pocket. His fingers touched 2 pieces of paper. Stacy's letter and the manifest. Stacy's words echoed in his mind. She's stronger than you know. Maybe his wife had given him the answer after all. He pulled out one of the papers, crumpled, folded, precious. He knelt and pressed it into Leah's hands, folding her small fingers over it. Your mum would want you to have this. Leah looked at the paper, confused. She started to unfold it, but Marcus stopped her. He leaned in close, whispered in her ear. Leah, listen carefully. This isn't Mommy's letter. This is something very important. After I leave, I need you to call a number. Ask for Sergeant O'Brien at the Riverside Sheriff's Office. Tell him you have evidence of a crime and people are in danger. Then read him what's on this paper. Can you do that for me, baby? Can you be brave like Mommy said? Leah's eyes went wide, but she didn't cry, didn't panic. I can be brave, Daddy. Marcus hugged Leroy. Keep her safe. Go do what you have to do. Leroy said, We'll be here when you get back. Marcus walked out the door, got in his car, drove away. From the window, Leah watched him go. She looked down at the paper in her hands, held it to her chest. She was brave, like Mommy said. Marcus called Amelia from the road. She answered on the second ring. Marcus, where are you? Are you okay? I'm fine, for now. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. But I need information. Amelia lowered her voice. They've put out a security alert for you. Your photo is posted in every guard station. They're saying you broke in and stole company property. They've labeled you dangerous. Marcus laughed bitterly. Dangerous. Right. I'm a single dad who was 5 minutes late for work. Marcus, this isn't a joke. Amelia's voice was urgent. Word is they've sent people to find you. Not security. Other people. The kind who don't file incident reports. Marcus expected this. Daniel Lucas didn't leave loose ends. Thanks for the warning, Amelia. I owe you. What are you going to do? He was quiet for a moment. Then, what I should have done from the beginning. I'm going to finish this. He started to hang up, but Amelia spoke quickly. Wait. If you're going where I think you're going, they've got men watching the east entrance. The parking garage is covered too. Marcus paused. How do you know that? Because I pulled up the rotation schedule and leaked it to myself. Her voice hardened. I've been watching these people for 2 years, Marcus. I've seen the manifests. I've seen the shipments. I never had proof. You could lose your job for this. Some things are worth more than a job. A pause. Be careful, Marcus, and make them pay. She hung up. Marcus drove on. The city skyline was visible now, dark towers against the morning sky. He knew what was waiting for him. A trap. Daniel's men. Probably worse. He drove toward it anyway. Marcus's apartment building looked peaceful in the early morning light. Quiet. Normal. But Marcus saw what others wouldn't. The door to his unit was ajar. 3 inches. He'd closed it. Locked it. There were scuff marks on the hallway floor. Fresh. 2 sets of boots. Large. Men who hadn't bothered being subtle. Old training kicked in. Assess, evaluate, decide. He could run. Probably should run. Instead, he walked forward. Because running wouldn't end this. Only walking through that door would. He pushed the door open. They were waiting. The same 2 hard-faced men from the warehouse, sitting in his living room like they owned it. One of them was going through Leah's drawings on the refrigerator. Mr. Grayson. The first one smiled. Mr. Lucas would like another word with you. They searched him, found his phone, his wallet, and most importantly, found the crumpled paper in his jacket pocket. The man looked at it, smiled wider. Mr. Lucas is going to want to see this. They dragged Marcus out to a waiting SUV. The neighbors watched from behind curtained windows. No one helped. No one called the police. The drive to Everclear headquarters was silent. Marcus sat between the 2 men, hands bound again. He thought of Leah, of the paper in her hands, of the words he'd whispered in her ear. For the first time in hours, he allowed himself a small, grim smile. The trap wasn't for him. It never was. Marcus lay on the expensive rug in Daniel Lucas's office, blood dripping from a fresh cut on his cheek. They'd been less gentle this time. Daniel stood over him, and for the first time, the billionaire's mask had slipped. The cold control was gone. In its place was rage, pure, naked rage. I gave you a chance, Mr. Grayson. His voice shook. I let you walk out of here alive, and you repay me by stealing my property? He held up the crumpled paper they'd taken from Marcus's pocket. Marcus said nothing. Daniel smoothed out the paper, began to read. His expression changed. Confusion replaced anger. "What is this?" He read aloud, his voice dripping with disbelief. "My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm probably not there anymore. But I need you to know that loving you was the greatest adventure of my life." Daniel stopped, stared at Marcus. "A love letter?" His voice rose. "What is this? Where is the manifest?" Marcus, through bloodied lips, managed a smile. "That's the last thing my wife ever wrote to me. She died 3 years ago." He spat blood on the expensive rug. "It's precious to me. So thank you for reading it out loud." Daniel's face contorted. He crumpled the letter and threw it at Marcus. "I don't care about your dead wife. Where is the manifest? Where is the proof?" And that's when they all heard it. Sirens, in the distance, getting closer. Daniel froze. The guards looked at each other. Daniel stormed to the window. Below, police cars were flooding the parking lot. SWAT vans, helicopters circling. He turned to Marcus, his voice barely controlled. "What did you do?" An hour earlier, Leroy's cabin. Leah sat at the kitchen table, the crumpled paper in her hands. She unfolded it carefully. It wasn't her mommy's handwriting. It was printed, official-looking, full of numbers and words she didn't understand. But Daddy had told her what to do, and she was brave, like Mommy said. She picked up the phone, dialed the number Daddy had whispered to her. "Riverside Sheriff's Office." "I need to speak to Sergeant O'Brien, please. My daddy says I have evidence of a crime and people are in danger." A pause on the other end. Then, "Hold on, sweetheart." Sergeant O'Brien was a grizzled veteran who'd seen everything in 30 years on the force, but he'd never taken a call quite like this. An 8-year-old girl reading him shipping codes and company names with perfect clarity. Xavier Arms, Everclear Corporation, illegal weapons, federal crime. He believed her. Something about the certainty in that small voice. He made the calls. SWAT mobilized, helicopters lifted off, squad cars raced toward Everclear Corporation. And in a cabin an hour outside the city, Leah Grayson hung up the phone and looked at Uncle Leroy. "I did it." Her voice trembled, but she didn't cry. "I was brave, Uncle Leroy." Leroy knelt down and hugged her tight. "You were braver than any soldier I ever served with, kiddo." Back in Daniel's office, chaos erupted. The guards bolted for the exits, trying to distance themselves from their boss. Daniel reached for his desk drawer. A gun, maybe, but Marcus was faster. Despite his injuries, despite the blood in his eyes, Marcus lunged. 6 years of Navy training, skills that never really died, took over. He tackled Daniel before the man's fingers could close on metal. They hit the floor hard, rolling, struggling. Daniel was older, but desperate. Marcus was beaten, but furious. Marcus pinned him to the ground, looked into the eyes of the man who had threatened his daughter. "That's for threatening Leah." He punched Daniel across the face. Once. Hard. The billionaire's head snapped back, blood spraying from his nose. Marcus stood, breathing heavily. Daniel lay groaning on the floor. The office doors burst open. SWAT flooded in, weapons raised. "Nobody move! Get on the ground!" Marcus raised his hands immediately, sank to his knees. Officers swarmed Daniel, dragging him up, cuffing him. The billionaire sputtered protests. "Do you know who I am, my lawyers? You'll all be sorry." But no one was listening. Through the chaos, Marcus locked eyes with Daniel one last time. The billionaire, the man who thought he could buy silence with threats, who thought money made him untouchable, was being hauled away like a common criminal. A uniformed officer approached Marcus. "Are you Marcus Grayson, the one who called this in?" Marcus shook his head, allowed himself a real smile for the first time in what felt like forever. "No, that was my daughter." The story made national headlines. Single dad exposes billion-dollar arms smuggling ring. Warehouse worker brings down corporate empire. 8-year-old hero calls police, saves father. Daniel Lucas was arrested and charged with multiple federal crimes: illegal arms trafficking, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, and attempted murder. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. Ronald Lucas flipped on his uncle immediately, providing testimony in exchange for a reduced sentence. He would serve 12 years. Derek, the man who had betrayed Marcus for a bonus, was arrested as an accessory. He couldn't meet Marcus's eyes in the courtroom. Everclear Corporation was dismantled. Its legitimate assets were seized and auctioned. The warehouse where Marcus had worked was eventually purchased by a new company with a different philosophy. They offered Marcus a job, morning at Alliance Limited, the company that rose from Everclear's ashes. The warehouse looked the same on the outside, but inside everything had changed. Natural light streamed through new skylights. Workers chatted and laughed as they clocked in. No one looked afraid. Marcus Grayson, now a foreman, stood near the entrance, reviewing the morning manifest. Still the same habit, still memorizing every shipment. Some habits were worth keeping. Behind him, the door burst open. A young worker named Matt came sprinting in, 10 minutes late. He punched his time card with shaking hands and looked around, terrified. He saw his boss approaching, braced for impact. But Marcus just smiled. "Relax, Matt, it's okay. Life happens." Matt blinked. I'm not fired? You're a good employee and a good guy. Just try to be on time and we've got your back." Marcus nodded toward the floor. "Now go on, get to work." Matt stammered a thank you and hurried to his station, relief flooding his face. Amelia appeared at Marcus's side. She was head of security now, a promotion that came with the new ownership. "You know, you could be a hard ass," she said, watching Matt go. "You've earned it." Marcus shrugged. "There's no such thing as a good boss, just good people. That's all any of us can try to be." Amelia smiled. "Stacy would be proud of you." Marcus nodded, touched the pocket of his shirt, where a letter sat, creased and worn from years of handling. They'd found it on Daniel's office floor, crumpled but intact. The police had returned it to him with his other belongings. "Take care of our girl. She's stronger than you know." "I hope so," he said quietly. Through the warehouse window, a school bus pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and Leah Grayson bounded off, backpack bouncing. She was healthier now, happier. Her asthma was better, new medication, better insurance. She went to a good school, had friends, got to be a kid. She waved at her father through the glass. He waved back. Life wasn't perfect. It never would be. Stacy was still gone. The bills still came. The world was still hard. But it was good. It was honest. And sometimes that's enough. And that's the story of how Marcus Grayson turned the worst day of his life into a second chance. Not just for himself, but for his daughter, his co-workers, and an entire company. He proved that your value isn't defined by the time card you punch or the title on your badge. It's defined by your integrity, your courage, and your love for the people who matter. Daniel Lucas thought money made him untouchable. He thought power meant he could threaten a child and walk away clean. He was wrong, because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room isn't the billionaire with the lawyers and the connections. It's the single dad with nothing left to lose, and an 8-year-old brave enough to pick up the phone. If this story touched you, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that good people can still win. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories like this one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.